job categories. These employees would receive the dollar, right, that they would receive it on the new range. Does that make sense? So you might move from a range 14, that was $13.20 an hour, to a range 15, that's going to be $15 an hour. But when the new scale comes in, it's $1 more than that. So it would be 16. So they get kind of a double deal there, because they're getting the raise for $1, but they're changing the job they're working is changing in the actual pay grade, which sometimes is a little bit confusing. These jobs that are listed here, with the addition of the SPED resource TA, are the ones that we're saying we would like to do that. We would like to raise the range rate of pay plus the $1 an hour. These, if you look at them, are all positions that, as we track open positions in the school district, they are excessively hard to fill. Always. When we look at custodial staff, we've had some buildings where we've had 2 openings, larger high schools, 2 openings the whole year. We've had some buildings where we've sent floaters in, and we may not have had custodian at all months. You know, our team's done a really good job, but it's necessary for us to move pay up to be competitive enough to fill some of those slots. And then all of those are pretty much that way. You know, job openings and just very, very tough to fill in the market. And so we've tried to move the range of pay up as well as the $1 an hour to try to help with that. The last page that's on there is the budget summary. And it kind of talks about the personnel. I always try to tell folks, the board and the commission, where your positions or kind of what positions you're being hired in the budget. As part of that additional staffing number on the first page of revenue changes. 14 academic teachers. We're always adding teachers for growth. Growth ratios through the county by building. 6 ELL teachers. Our EL population is increasing, but they're also changing the ratio the state requires us to have a specific number of students per teacher. And so as they lower that, it requires us to hire more. CTE teacher, 2.5 guidance counselors based on the ratio and the number of kids in the school. Lead educator, SPED assistant, 3 nurses. We're moving to split from Liberty Creek and Union. And then we're transferring pay off the reimbursement to GP. HR, finance, maintenance, 1 roofer. So pretty straightforward. I would say that less movement this year on this page than previous years. Last year obviously was pretty high with opening the new schools, but this year's a lot less activity on that page. The next page, I think per student instruction allocation, you know, we've gone up on this every year. We've held steady since 1920 at $75. This is what goes directly to the schools, $75 per student, and kind of see how it's split up. And years and years ago, we used to collect fees from parents in elementary and middle school, and we eliminated that as we moved this up. Parents have to fundraise less for things that we believe are important to just the operation of school. We used to have parents raising a lot of money for copiers, copy machine leases, and copy paper, and all that kind of stuff. And fortunately, we've been able to fund those things through the student allocations to buildings, and the principals have more ability to manage that directly and maybe take a little bit of pressure off the fundraising component and that sort of thing. We did ask the county, we didn't ask the county for any additional money. I think if you look into your blue book on page 1, you'll see where local taxes, it's the very first line. That's the exact same dollar amount that we asked for the previous year. That's what we asked for this year.
Without objection, I'd like to extend this time period to 5:45. I know we've scheduled to start our next meeting. So without objection, just so we have time for questions here, I'd like to extend to 5:45. Seeing no objections, we'll just go ahead and do that. And we can go ahead and just operate normally if you want to get in queue and ask questions.
I will say that in the future, I'll add this, and I mentioned this to the school board. You know, in the future, obviously, you know, we always address pay first, and we've come a long way. We still need to be mindful of that as you move in the future. I'm sure you will be on the county side as well each year. There's going to be, obviously, from the state's perspective, there will be sets of minimums that have to be met within 3 full budget cycles. And I think we've positioned the district pretty well for that, but there'll have to continue to be pay increases to meet that mandate. Okay.
Mr. Rogers?
Thank you, sir. Dr. Phillips, first of all, thank you and your staff for this presentation. So I have questions. I have had some people in my district, in my area, ask, what is the probability or chance of the county getting free or reduced lunch across the county? Is that something we're looking at, or what is the chance of that?
We don't, school lunches ran through the school, national school lunch program, and that's a federal thing. It's included in your packet in a separate budget. I have heard talk that I kind of thought the feds would do that because post-pandemic, there was big talk about it, and then they didn't do it. But I think it got cut right at the end. And then I heard that the state may pick it up with some of their additional money, which are both options I think that will happen before the county will be faced with that. I would be, my perspective would be, I think it would be a good thing. I would be careful about doing that until I knew those other sources were out.
Sure.
I just think that the feds in the next, I think they probably do.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the money, thank you.
Go ahead.
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
The money that came in through the SNAP program during the pandemic, as you mentioned, where is that money allocated? And I don't know that I'm looking at the budget right. I'm looking at page 3, I think, of the S&P budget.
Are you in the S&D budget?
Yes, sir.
It would have been generated through revenue, and so we had, obviously, we served more students during that time, which we did. We've kept the middle cost steady, which has been a real struggle because the cost of food is going up tremendously. So it would have been expended back out in food or staffing, you know, with the exception of what possibly is in there for fund balance.
And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be complicated, but you know where I can see that money where it came in and went back out?
Well, it would be split between,
I'm not a school nutrition expert on this. I believe all of that funding for the free, if SNAP was part of that, was in the federal. That would only be, you wouldn't see, you're going to see this different than when we were fully funded through the federal, because all of our revenue was from the federal, not obviously payments for children, et cetera. And so I believe that revenue flows through that 4,700, that federal revenue. I can clarify that with Mr. Chairman.
If you don't mind, it'd be great.
And so was that SNAP in particular?
Correct. But the federal funds that paid for the free lunch,
Yeah.
given out
For everybody.
correct.
Yeah, that would have come through that federal funds line.
Okay.
we'll confirm that and make sure for you.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
And then also, if I may again, Mr. Chairman, sorry, the ESSER funds, I think, is being used to pay for staff or administrative staff. Does the board, and I understand that you're leaving, but is there any intentions of moving, I don't know how that works, general fund money over to pay for those funds, or what can we expect in the upcoming years?
So, yeah, we try to, I think I provided a list, but we try to, when we have those federal program funds like that, that we know are going to be a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, we try to not hire staff that's going to be recurring as an expenditure. If we do, it's staff that we're planning to hire anyway in GP. So we basically just catch a windfall of their salary and benefits for the time of the federal money. So it just saves us having to buy them, having to pay for that in GP for a year or 2 or 3. But we try to limit that where there's not exposure for the system beyond what we would have normally added anyway.
You're saying GP is general purpose?
General purpose, yes, sir. That's the big budget, yes, sir.
Ms. Boyd?
had a question, I didn't see if it was in the slides, maybe it was in there instead. When we talk about this range increases, can we get the salary ranges for the states?
Yeah, they're all posted online.
They're online?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can look across, it looks like, it's kind of confusing, but it looks like this. And so it'd be salary range and then step, and you would just follow it down. And so you can see that the 15, it's going to 17, you can see exactly where they would fall, and if they moved up, here would they be.
And we don't have a proposed one yet because it's not approved, but if you would, that will, the long one that it shows you, you would add $1 to that, that would be nice.
If the budget gets approved, you just add $1 to any one of those you're looking at.
Commissioner Klein.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, on budget summary expenditure changes, which is 6, 7 pages in, we're talking about new expenses of $21,615,000. The out of the software and iPad training supports, is that shopped out of house? Do you contract with organizations to?
I think Apple does it.
Apple comes in?
Some of it is Apple, some of it is other programs that we use. So, like for instance,
New transportation.
the new transportation program, our student information system, all of those things are done with vendors that are approved by the state.
So it's a combination of human beings and computer programs?
No, this is all software.
All software?
Yeah,
Okay.
software or training for the iPads.
Okay.
Portion of that was the training, and portion of that was also just software.
All right, thank you.
Good work.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. One question I've been getting from parents once they heard about the iPads in this budget, if their child takes the iPad home, maybe you mentioned this and I missed it, but if it breaks, they misplace it, are they going to be liable for that cost as a parent or so the school? Is there insurance?
Yeah, so I think Scott can talk about this, but one of the reasons I think a lot of school districts are using iPads and one is just the functionality, but especially without we're testing across the state, but it's Apple Care. So, you know, if a student drops it, breaks it, of course it's in a case. So we try to make it where it's not as easily done, but it's still going to happen. And Apple Care will replace that. And I think there's a limit. If the same student breaks 9 of them, we probably got a problem. But, you know, some are going to get lost, some are going to get misplaced, some are going to be broken. But with what we're trying to do, Apple Care will replace that device at no cost. But I do think that in most school systems are working on something parents sign that just says we're going to take reasonable care to try to keep up with it and not break it.
It'd be with Apple Care, it's 2 per year for 3 years. So if it gets damaged or broken or stops charging, that's a zero cost. Like basically, they bring it into the school. We have somebody there that will fill out a form. Apple will overnight a new iPad, and they send the box, and then we send the other one back. So that process will go through. Loss is the big thing. Now, if it's stolen, we can break it, so it's useless. I personally wanted to try to send them a Google form first to say, if you'd like access to this device, please put your address and phone number.
Yeah.
And we'll send support to your house. But, because I think people might actually fill that out. But we can brick it. And then what Apple has shared with us in other districts that are one-to-one, they communicate with the sheriff's department, local pawn shops, things like that, and they're able to recover a lot of devices. If we can recover it, even if we brick it, we can unbrick it. It's just the person that takes it can. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I guess I will have one question.
Okay.
So, breaking my own rule here, asking questions from the chair, but what I guess I'm trying to understand is looking at the school kind of like a profit and loss point of view here.
Sure.
From the macro level, looking at year-over-year fund balance excess, because by looking at that, we can get an understanding of what your burn looks like. So I didn't see it in here, but someone kindly put this together for me, pulling this from the comptroller's office. And I just want to I want to make sure these numbers are correct. I've got about 12 years of data here, but I'm only going to go over the last few. So if these numbers are correct, and if you can confirm or deny this, 2020 had a total reported fund balance of $64,200,000, $64,200,000. 2021, 88, and then last year, 119,400. Are those, does that sound about in line with your understanding?
That's really high for this year. I don't know if you're getting that, where you're getting that report, but.
Yeah, it's from the state comptroller's office.
Yeah, but I don't know what, you can look, it's easy to look on the state comptroller for when we closed the books for the previous year.
Yep.
And you'll be able to see it real fast.
So the last year sounds high, but the 64 and the 88 sound about
Yeah,
right?
I think we're in the 80s. You can add these numbers up and get there.
Okay.
And I think a little bit of that was twofold. One, having a good fund balance, strong fund balance, and of course this is up for opinion like everything else, but having a good fund balance, I think is a positive thing in the sense that you can manage moving forward without having to be in a knee-jerk fashion. So from a business perspective, obviously you want to have a strong fund balance. And I think that's the position the school district's in. If you look at the increase back in between 20 and 21, we generated revenue in 2020, 2021, but we expended half of it in teacher raises that were started in January of 2020, I think. So there could have been some of change in that year from that.
Got it. So just
I think in the future too, if you're looking at it kind of like I look at it from a macro 30,000 foot view, and I mentioned this to the school board, you're going to have to meet that minimum salary for teachers, right? You're going to have to continue to meet that. Now, we're well above it now, but 3 budget cycles down the road, you're going to obviously, unless the state does something different with this base formula, you're going to be deficit spending quite a bit to fund that.
that's kind of where I was getting at here. Do you have a projection, do you have a 3 to 5 year projection of when you would hit deficits?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to burn cash if you give recurring expenses above this year. You're not, because you're not deficit spending. What I'm telling you is, if you run it like a business, 3 years from now, if you don't put any more revenue in and you're expending a deficit spending every year past this year's, you're fine. If you do that, you're going to be glad you've got that cash balance. Otherwise, you wouldn't be payroll.
Got it. Thank
From a
you.
business perspective.
Ms. Miller?
I just have a question on the appropriations page, circuit page 2, the very last line, transfers out. What is that?
Which page are you on?
On page 2, it's the very last, 99,100, it says account number, it says transfers out.
Page 2. 99,100 transfers out, $11,445.
Transfers out typically, so we have CEIS, and so we have to actually, and we also have indirect costs. And so I don't always, with federal, I don't always budget those until we know those, but our actuals will actually come in more than this budget. But our indirect cost comes in as a transfer in, and then I think that CEIS is a transfer out. And so it's a little unusual because CEIS is in there this year, and in the past, we have had that as an amendment. And so I believe that is a CEIS transfer out. So.
It was a 0 for the prior 2.
Yes, correct, yeah. And so that's because that CEIS, how that they require us to account for that.
Thanks.
Mr. Rogers and then Mr. Hyde.
Yes, Dr. Phillips, again, how do you, or how should I explain to constituents out there that's asking, they want to make sure this raise gets to the teachers in the classroom? Is this just so different than the BEP was, or how do I explain that to?
So we apply raises across classified. It impacts all teachers. It impacts all classified employees. So that would be principals, assistant principals, everyone. That's a certified employee. I'm sorry, certified. We do the same thing for classified. For classified employee, every employee gets it. So no one's left out.
And it's the same all the way across, right?
Same all the way across. Doesn't make any difference.
Thank you.
Mr. Hyde?
Yes, sir.
What is the estimated student increase in enrollment?
There's how it changes every year, but, you know, if you look at a 15-year window, with the exception of 1 year, it's always around 300, 320 students. We've had some years, once or twice, in 07, 08, that it was 600 and something. We've had some years that it was, you know, 100. But we give that sheet to you guys every year that kind of shows it at the first of the school year, and it's a big historical analysis of that for every school building in the town.
Phil, I don't think I've seen that sheet.
Yeah, I usually give it, I think I sent it to Chairman Brown back in September. But I can resend it, be glad to give it to you. We keep up with it historically, so you can see every school, and when new schools are added, you'll be able to tell which ones they split from, and then at the end is the total. Yeah, and it lets you know, and it kind of, sorry, Mr. Hyde, I thought you might have seen that before, but it kind of gives you, goes all the way back to, I think, when you were there. It just kind of lets you know, year over year, what you're looking at.
Yeah, and I think
Historic.
that's very important,
Yeah.
but I don't think we've been getting that at the education committee.
Yeah, I don't know about this year, but I know in the past I've given it, I've sent it a bunch of times. Yeah, but I'm happy to give it to y'all. Yeah, be glad to send it to you in the morning, okay? Yeah, send you that.
Ms. Boyd?
I have a question regarding schools and the redistricting. Is that going to come up again? Because I think redistricting. Are we going to
You
see
mean
that
rezoning?
again? Yes, rezoning.
Rezoning will occur again. I do not know when in the future, but it will occur again at some point.
So what triggers it? What causes us to rezone?
Well, you have to move zones to be able to manage population between buildings. If some grow because of subdivisions or the population changes, you know, in the school that's neighboring zone has capacity, you have to change the lines to meet the number.
Exactly, I understand that. So when I look at Gallatin and I see where they're at, and I look at Liberty Creek and I see what they are at, I mean, those are the extreme opposites.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking,
Yeah,
when we would see redistricting.
Yeah, very well could lead that. Tell you another area too that probably would be faster, maybe down Burris and Knox Gray Street. Probably will have to shift to what we used to call, I guess, what used to be the old beach zone, which is everybody on that side of Chapel Island Road. We'll now go back to Little Beach and Hunter instead of coming across going to Burris and Knox. But that's probably because we really want, you know, the Durham Farm, we're going to need to do that. Burris was the fastest growing, highest growth curve in the county for the first time. It wasn't Station Camp over there.
So I assume that he's discussing that.
Yeah.
So do you have any idea when it might come about?
Well, it'll be up to the school board, not Langford. If I were here, I'd make the change to Burris and Knox in December this year or next August.
Would that be the only redistricting suspect there?
This year.
So we'll be leaving Gallatin and Ohio.
Yes. But I mean, that's up to the board, not Langford.
But you won't be bringing up
It doesn't come here.
I understand it doesn't come here, but when I go out and talk to
Yeah.
citizens across the county, they've got a lot of opinions.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to say is that decision will be made by the school board at the appropriate time. I don't know. But I can tell you that if I were here, I know Burris and Knox are going to have to be split back to Beach and Hunter.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, seeing no one else in queue, we don't need a decision, I think, on this yet because we're about to roll into another meeting. So what I might, without objection here, is I suggest we adjourn for 5 minutes, come back at 5:55, and one more
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, it's one more. I do believe we can, I think education needs to approve it in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's.
Do we need to? Okay. Well, then I will await a motion.
So it needs to be education first.
Do you have a motion, Mr. Becker?
I'm not on that committee.
Oh,
Motion to approve. Second.
all right. For the education board only.
Say names
Say it again.
for the minutes. Say
Oh, yeah, so we had, gotcha, so, it was, Mr. Lambert had the primary, and, had the motion, and Mr. Rogers had the second. Thanks for that reminder, Mr. Booker. Okay, so for the Education Committee only, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we can adjourn and move into the next meeting.
Well, you have to consider that at this meeting, I think.
I don't think we do. We can consider that all together in the budget.
No, budget usually doesn't.
It's two separate.
It doesn't matter?
Well, we get notice.
Yes.
That's fine.
The
All right,
notice for the, because we meet right after this, but the notice for that is.
then we'll go ahead and take a vote on it.
Some
Second.
All in favor?
That's Harrison and Becker.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. One more motion.
Motion adjourned.
Second.